今年係日本 Lussmann 創立100週年，所以廠方咧就推出咗幾款 Centennial 100週年紀念型號咧，以示慶祝。咁啊，包括有呢個 B100 Centennial SACD CD 機、L100 Centennial 合併機，同埋呢個 B100 Centennial 單聲道後級。咁喺俊韻嘅展房咧，就見到呢個 B100 Centennial 單聲道後級咧喺度開聲示範啊！咁啊睇見咧非常之大部啊！咁原來咧有成61.5公斤重啊！咁啊標示嘅輸出功率咧就非常保守，8盎輔助咧就有125瓦，咁而頭25瓦咧就係 A 類嘅工作啊！咁不過咧峰值輸出咧喺1盎嗰陣時咧可以去到呢個1000瓦，咁呢部機咧就花咗5年時間精心調聲。咁啊，真係唔簡單啊！咁啊，之後就見到呢個 Sunyata Research 嘅展示櫃啊，咁有唔同嘅 Sunyata Research 產品啊，咁亦都見到咧有佢哋嘅電源分配器啊。咁而我最近咧就試緊呢個電源分配器，咁啊見到呢個 Sunyata Research 嘅代表咧，咁啊當然啦要問問佢相關嘅技術，因為咧 Everest X 咧最近咧就推出咗呢個直立式版本同埋呢個機架式嘅版本啊。咁啊，到底有啲咩分別？
The Everest was iconic as a tower. It built the reputation of Sunyata Research's Everest product, and over the years, a lot of customers that may not have had floor space or they didn't prefer the look of the tower would tell me, hey, if you guys ever build a shelf version, I'll buy one. And it took us a couple of years, but when the Everest changed into the Everest X form factor, we've really been a good company of listening to feedback from our customers and trying to be able to curate future products to fit their needs. And that was the #1 reason why we integrated the Everest X shelf into our offering. Beyond that, performance-wise, they're really identical internally. There is no difference between the two of them. The only other differences you might be able to get is if you run the tower on carpet versus putting the shelf version on an isolated base. Sometimes the isolation on a dedicated rack might prove to be a little bit better over placing the power distributor directly on carpet.
Everest X 係屬於咧邊一類型嘅電源產品？咁裏邊咧有冇呢個電容、電感、變壓器呢一啲零件嘅咧？
So the Everest X is a passive power distributor. We tried to avoid power conditioning because in our mind it's not a conditioner. Its primary goal is to provide instantaneous current delivery. That's the #1 requirement that we have. Secondary to current delivery is noise isolation. It's the chokes, coils, and transformers and the regenerative approach that actually led to Sunyata Research becoming a company almost 30 years ago. Kalen Gabriel, our designer, he has an audiophile and a military background. When he retired and when he was focusing more on his hobby, he realized I tried all these power distributors and I did not like what it did to the sound of my system, because he realized instantaneous current is the most important thing in an audio system. So by building a product that was 100% passive, which he introduced that term to the industry, it allows for peak current delivery to be delivered to all electronics, achieving our first goal, which is what we call DTCD, or Dynamic Transient Current Delivery. That's priority 1, and which is why we avoid chokes, coils, transformers, or regenerative.
Sunyata 廠方咧全面升級到呢個 X 世代，咁啊到底 X 咧係啲咩意思？咁裏邊咧有啲咩黑科技？
So X is, in 30-year history, X represents the biggest, most prolific increase in performance that we've ever had. And what X truly is if we back up to our V1 generation, there was a module that was on the interconnects and it was called TAP. It was a transverse axial polarizer. TAP is a bunch of copper discs at the time that would break up the electromagnetic wave. It's 100% passive, it's not inline, it's not battery powered, it is strictly passive, and anytime signal or power transmits down a cable, there's an electromagnetic field that rides with the signal. That electromagnetic field propagates away from the cable, but there's also a field that runs with the signal. That that field that runs with the signal can create smearing, it can create timing issues, and what that technology did, it allowed for the good waves to escape, which we want them to do, but it also prevented the waves that were riding with the signal from continuing to ride. That would break up that electromagnetic field. X is the improvement, the enhancement of that TEP technology to integrating it into power cables, power distributors, grounding products. This technology has been miniaturized and it can now be integrated into any product that we have, which is X generation. Anything that has X designation has TAP-C technology. And that's the new version of this technology that has been wildly advanced, and it's increased the performance of every single one of our products that uses this technology, which is really exclusive to Shunyata Research.
除咗訪問咗 Shunyata Research 之外咧，喺進韻房咧仲見到呢個 Audify 創辦人之一兼設計師 Massimiliano Massi。咁啊，當然啦，要揾佢做個訪問。咁啊，首先咧，等佢簡單介紹下自己。
And I'm Massimiliano Massi. I came from Italy, and I'm the co-owner of Audiaflight. That this year is celebrating. We are celebrating our 30 years anniversary. So yeah, it's a very big goal, and so we are so happy that we still on the market, and we are proud to be here this year for also this celebration.
喺進韻展房咧，見到廠方咧為咗慶祝創立30週年咧而推出嘅 Sentimental Signature 系列。咁呢個系列咧係咪取代之前嘅 Sentimental 系列現時嘅機種咧？
First of all, is not a previous because the strumento, classical strumento, is still on the market, and so it's not that the signature substitute the previous line. It's so exists the strumento and the strumento signature. As I told you before, details. Details means to celebrate our 30 years on the market, we try to improve the strumento line. That for us was not easy because for my point of view, the strumento set a very good level of reproduction. But so what we make was to take care about the details, I told you. So we improve, for example, prim boards, the connection inside. So now the connection is with using the silver instead of the copper, and the components are another level of the quality. Also the relay for the change, for the connection is very expensive.
最近咧試咗 Audify FLS 20 SACD 機，出嚟嘅效果都唔錯。問問廠方咧，呢一個串流年代咧，點解仲研發同埋推出嘅 SACD 機？唔怕冇市場咩？
First of all, the music lovers have a lot of discs. So this is why we develop in this period, in the last few years, the FLS20 SACD, because people has a lot of disc at home and still loves their disc. Of course, nobody wanted, including me, to put in the garbage a lot of disc just because it's absolutely part of the life of each lover music. So this is why we introduce FLS20. The FLS20 uses the same philosophy of our products. We spend a lot of time also just for the details, as I told you before, also for the mechanical top loader mechanism. Because we believe that every detail is very important. We use the current feedback technology on the output stage, of course, and we take care about the conversion and we try to have the sound that follow our philosophy.
近年冒起得非常之快嘅 Revival Audio 咧，佢哋推出咗呢個大單元書架喇叭，都好受呢個發燒友關注啊！咁我之前咧都試咗佢哋嘅 Anetic 5嘅喇叭，表現咧真係唔錯啊！咁啊見到呢個 Revival Audio 創辦人之一 Jackie Lee， 咁啊當然啦要同佢做個專訪，問佢咧點樣創立呢一個品牌啊？
這樣子的，因為我們呢一開始的話都是在另外一個丹麥的公司嘛，我們是那時候的同事。那時候我主要負責的呢是在比較 commercial 這一塊的都是我負責的。那我們另外一個創辦人他是負責在聲學技術方面，他是首席的這個聲學的工程師。所以那時候我們就認識了。那認識了之後呢，我們剛好都住在同一個宿舍裡面，所以晚上啊常常喝點小酒啊就會聊天，就聊到說他有一個夢想，希望有一天他能夠有一個自己的品牌。那他也曾經創過業，但是並不是很成功，因為他沒有一個懂得這個 commercial 的人。那我們就說啊，有一天如果我們都離開了，有機會我們就一起合作。那後來真的，我是因為家裡的關係搬到了瑞士，那他是因為個人的關係他離開了，我們後來又碰頭，然後才成立了 Revival Audio， 繼續他的這個夢想。
好多人咧都提到音響咧係一個夕陽行業 ，Revival Audio 咧點解仲投入呢個行業，創立一個新嘅品牌？
這個我其實從我在前公司的時候，我們就一直有聽到這樣子的一個說法嘛，就說這個 audio 啊、兩聲道啊、這個夕陽行業啊越來越小啊。可是其實這幾年我們自己的觀察，反而覺得好像這個勢頭啊，慢慢的有在回升、回溫的。那也很感謝，是因為這個黑膠唱片可能重新又帶領了一群新的年輕的這個受眾呢，回到了這個行業。那從黑膠開始到音響系統，兩聲道又回到了一個主流。所以這2年我們也在慢慢的做調整。其實我們很多的客戶也是大概在30-40歲這樣子的比較年輕的一個族群啊。那每年我們在音響展也看到越來越多的年輕人。所以我們當初創立這個 Revival 也是希望通過一個比較實惠的這樣子的價格，讓更新進來的這個族群能夠享受到真正的好聲音。對，那剛好趕上這個勢頭，所以這幾年我們也過得比較順利一點，這樣子。謝謝大家。
你哋有啲咩優勢？邊一個型號咧最能夠代表你哋公司？
我覺得我們最大的優勢啊，就是在於說我們所有的技術都是 in-house engineering 的。對，那這個最具代表性的一定就是我們的 driver 啦。對，我們比如說從我們一開始的 Atlantic 5、Atlantic 3到現在後來有 Sprint Series，整個系列，整個我們的產品線的所有的單體都是我們自己研發的。對，每一個細節都能研發，所以為什麼我們現在又能推出這個限量版啊，又能繼續的對單體做提升啊，也是因為我們能夠自己內部的研發，每一個部件我們都可以自己做調整，所以我們有很多的空間，這個是我們跟其他品牌很不一樣的地方。那聲音上也會很有我們自己的風格，對，這個是我覺得跟大家不一樣的地方。那我們最具代表性的型號肯定就是亞塔蘭啊 Atlantic 系列了。對對對，那很多人是從 Atlantic 5認識我們的。對對對，這個是我們一直做的比較好的地方。那現在開始 Atlantic 3這個書架箱也越來越多的人呢認識我們，還有我們延伸的各個型號這樣子。
今次咧喺俊敏嘅展訪，除咗訪問咗幾間嘅廠家咧，其實仲有好多品牌咧都值得大家注意㗎。好似 Petos 咁啊，之前咧我都去過佢哋嘅廠房咧，發覺咧佢哋都好用心製作啊。咁啊，另外呢個 Kobara Solar 呢個發燒線材，咁啊仲有咧用到呢個 Ten Wood 防彈木造聲箱， 分音起到落重料嘅嚟自德國嘅阿華喇叭。咁依期咧都好多發燒留意嘅 Well 嘅超低音喇叭等等啊。